Hey, welcome NFL football fans. It's that time again, time for another edition of NFL Football Talk. I'm your host, Charles E. Smith Jr. This is an Inside Sports production. And here we are, we're up to week 4 of the NFL. I'm sorry, I'm a big hockey fan and, hockey is starting also. But this is all about the NFL, almost to the quarter pole of the season here. And we've got some surprises to talk about. So without any further ado, let's get right into it. But as you know, I do not work alone here. I do enlist the help of the very, very best. So let me go ahead and introduce the man many of you already follow on Twitter at Chris L. Sports. And if not, you should be. He is a proud graduate of Rutgers University and my favorite East Coast intellectual. So here he is from somewhere in an undisclosed location in beautiful Southern California. The man of the hour, Chris Lardieri. Chris, what's up out there, man?
Charles, again, thanks for the great introduction. As always, not sure how proud I am to be a Rutgers grad after losing to Buffalo. My good friend and Rutgers roommate, Stu, pointed out on Saturday afternoon that maybe Rutgers could beat the Bills, but as we learned Sunday, the Bills are not even dead yet. So rough times for Rutgers football, to say the least.
Yeah, that's true. But, before we get into it, we got to give some credit here. Records are falling. Not just Patrick Mahomes and what he's doing there in KC, but hey, how about Drew Brees? 6,301 completion. That breaks the old record held by Brett Favre. But you know what, Mr. Favre, if you're worried about all your records falling, don't worry. I'm sure that forever you will hold the record for most career interceptions.
Yeah, a true gunslinger, and you got to give the guy credit forcing the ball in there. I know a lot of people like to compare Patrick Mahomes to him, but you got to remember Favre was a guy before a lot of these rule changes that favored the offenses, and really tough as nails too, and not afraid to fling that ball into coverage.
Yeah, that's true. And speaking of quarterbacks, Jimmy Garoppolo goes down with a knee injury. He's done for the season for the San Francisco 49ers. And we got to give our condolences and maybe pour some out for all of the Bay Area fans there. The Raiders are 0-3. The Niners are now without a quarterback and looks like, 1-2, and probably it'll be a race to see who's going to get the #1 draft pick. I mean, we're maybe looking at a pair of 3-13 teams when all is said and done.
I think if anything, they're going to be battling it out for the top pick. That'll be the most compelling football story in the Bay Area. But look on the bright side, especially in Oakland, you've got the A's going to the baseball playoffs, and you'll always have the Warriors. So I'm not going to shed too many tears for them.
There we go. So what's more interesting after 3 weeks here? The fact that the Chiefs, Dolphins, and the LA Rams are all 3-0, undefeated, or the fact that the Houston Texans, Oakland Raiders, and Arizona Cardinals are 0-3?
I think they're equally surprising, but I'm going to lean towards the former, especially given that your Miami Dolphins are 3-0. I mean, this is a team that the so-called experts were claiming in August and early September could be fighting it out for the top draft pick, how bad they were. Ryan Tannehill was not going to be the same guy. What is he, 9-1 in his last 10 games now? Looks like he hasn't missed a beat after tearing his knee last year. While I do think it's surprising that the Texans are 0-3, they're not a very good team. And as for the Raiders and Cardinals, I mean, you look at them now objectively, the Raiders have completely gone into the tank post-Khalil Mack trade. And, any team quarterback by Sam Bradford, it's bad when the rookie coach of the Cardinals is pulling Bradford with 2 minutes left in a 2-point game and throwing a rookie quarterback to the Wolves. So can't say I'm too surprised by those teams. But look, I think the Chiefs are the story of the NFL right now. But like we've said many years on this show, Charles, Andy Reid's a great September coach. Come talk to me in December.
Right, and I was talking with someone else, in fact, Anthony Barbarin, who does our basketball analysis here for Inside Sports, but I said there's only one man who can stop the Chiefs. And the answer is?
Andy Reid and his clock management.
Exactamundo. I think I'm really shocked, though, with not so much with Arizona, because I figured they would struggle this year, but with Houston and Oakland, though, and being winless and the way that they're losing, though, and it looks like with Houston, Deshaun Watson, I hope he gets back whatever he lost because, he just does not have that explosiveness yet. And with Oakland, they showed some of this in the preseason games. They were having trouble punching the ball into the end zone. But you think we look at Gruden as a genius, so to speak, which he was all those years as an analyst on Monday Night Football because he watched all that tape and everything else. He should have had a handle on everything, but it just looks like a dumpster fire there in Oakland. And Houston, though, really, Houston still has that defense. So I'm really shocked about Houston being 0-3.
Yeah, definitely. I think at the very least, look, they played the Patriots tough, but I would have figured last week they'd beat Tennessee, which apparently Mike Vrabel's a great coach because that defense shut down the Jaguars. They've beaten the Texans. Not getting a heck of a lot of offense or quarterback play, but regardless, I still thought the Texans should have won that game, and I thought they should have beat the Giants at home. I mean, look, it's great. J.J. Watt looks like he's healthy again. He got 3 sacks. Although I will say they didn't get a lot of pressure on Eli. I mean, he had all day to throw, which makes all the difference in the world. And at the end of the day, the calls for Eric Flowers to be benched, it's clear this guy was the source of all Giants' offensive woes, right, Charles? But it just looks like Clowney on the other side of the ball can't get going, and you can't rush the passer. It looks as though the Houston secondary is easy to be picked apart in 2018.
Yeah, that's true. So, yeah, we'll see what happens there. But just expected more out of those boys. So let's go ahead and we're going to, we got the different segments we do. We do our picks of the week. We take 4 of the more intriguing matchups. We give our prognostication on that. Then also we have fantasy football tips coming up right here on NFL Football Talk and our Gambler's Delight pick for all those of you who enjoy putting a little bit of juice on these games. So we're going to get into those segments right after we hear from Mr. Lardieri. You always have a little bit of wisdom for the football world. What you got for us today?
Yeah, being the middle-aged curmudgeonly man that I am allegedly am or not, got a couple rants this week. First and foremost, has Clay Matthews gotten another penalty yet? I lost track. I mean, the guy's getting flagged every week. I get that the rule was rewritten to protect the quarterback, namely his teammate Aaron Rodgers, whose collarbone got broken by Anthony Barr last year in Minnesota, but this is ridiculous. By no means is he pile driving quarterbacks or deliberately landing on them a la Tony Siragusa to Rich Gannon back in 2001, but it's out of control. And, the NFL just digs in and says it's the right call, and it's really not, and something needs to be done. And short of, what are we going to do? Have pass rushers two-hand touch the quarterback or just push them? I mean, it's really getting out of control. I don't fault the refs in this case. The rules are the rules. Yet again, all roads lead to Roger Goodell. They need to address this, or I really think the way defenses are going to be able to play football will be hampered. And look, I'm the first guy to say we got concussion issues in the NFL. They've been addressed. They continue to need to be addressed. This has nothing to do with concussions. I think they've really taken the pendulum and swung it too far. And then second of all, the New England Patriots, I love it yet again this year. Everyone's writing them off. An impressive win for the Detroit Lions, not to take anything away from Matt Patricia beating up on his mentor, Bill Belichick. But look, the team doesn't have Julian Edelman. Josh Gordon didn't play. Other than Gronkowski, there's really for no one to Brady to throw to. The defense hasn't had stars on that side of the ball for a while. But look, I'm not going to write this team off. I don't think they're great. I don't think they're a Super Bowl contender. They're lucky that they play in the AFC East. That's a division that can be won at 9-7, frankly. And they get things going this week and beat the Dolphins. We're undefeated, an interesting game in Foxborough. I think they could get things back together, especially with the return of Edelman. But don't throw dirt on the Patriots yet, but at the same time, don't expect to see them in the Super Bowl come February.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, let's get right into it here. So the picks of the week, we've got 4 different games here we're going to pick. Last week, Chris went 2-2. I went 3-1.
3-1, Charles.
I'm sorry, you went 3-1. I'm sorry. You did pick Pittsburgh. That was the game you picked for Monday night. That's the game I missed. I picked Tampa Bay. And you went against your Giants against Houston, whereas I went for the Giants, and that was the one that I had there. So we did pretty well last week. That's 75% according to my high school math, and I'll take that any week of the year. So first game up, those Miami Dolphins, undefeated. Going into Foxborough, they're going to play the New England Patriots. The Dolphins beat the Oakland Raiders last week, 28-20, and then New England, of course, that lost to Detroit. What do we think about this one? Dolphins are a 6.5-point underdog, but playing well. And, hey, he's talked about Julian Edelman being out. He's going to miss this game also. He's not going to be back until the 5th game of the season, so that may work well for the Dolphins. How do you see this game?
Yeah, I completely agree that Edelman will be missed. That said, until the Dolphins can go into Foxborough and win a game or really give them a game, which I haven't seen done in a long time, I'm going to side with the Patriots. I don't know if it's stubbornness, if the fact that I believe in learning something from history. That said, I expect this to be a snooze fest and a fairly ugly offensive game that may set the game back a few decades. But that said, I really don't know if Tannehill can go and win on the road. I mean, I think last week they had a few trick play and a few things bounce their way in a win over Oakland. But not to take anything away from your Fins, but I'm going to go with the experienced Patriots. And I think at this point, this is a telltale sign for this team. If they do lose to the Dolphins, while I do think they'll be in trouble, at least from a division perspective, they're going to be down one game to the Dolphins.
Yeah, there we go. So Dolphins at 3-0, Patriots at 1-2 right now. I'm going to go ahead and say this is the game. I think that Dolphins, things are finally going their way, even though they lost a couple of players off the defensive line. So they're going to have trouble getting the edge rush against Brady this week. But I like the way the Dolphins have been playing. And honestly, I think the Patriots at this point, looking at how, shall we say, depleted they are, really it's about the mystique of the Patriots right now. And I think if the Dolphins can overcome that, they can pull the upset. I'm going to go ahead and go with the Dolphins in this game. And I
All right.
Okay, we're back. Okay. So, okay, we'll pick up where we left off. What was the last thing you heard about me talking about the Dolphins?
Yeah, I mean, if you just go to the next game, I guess.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm picking the Dolphins. All right. So let's go ahead with the next game. Sorry for the technical difficulties, everybody. NFL football talk, and we're back. Charles E. Smith Jr., Chris Lardieri. And first pick, we split on that game. I'm going to take the Dolphins for the upset. Mr. Lardieri is going with the Patriots. Next game, Detroit Lions, who are coming off that win over the Patriots. And they're going to be in Dallas to face the Cowboys, who are coming off a loss to Seattle. These are 1 and 2 teams. It's desperation time, I think, for both of these teams. But really, I'm going to go with, as I said, I expected Dallas to struggle this season. I think that's going to continue. Even though the Detroit Lions are a 3-point underdog, I do kind of like the way that they're playing, and I think they'll be a little bit amped from that win over the Patriots. So I'm going to go with Detroit to go into Dallas and take down the Cowboys. And the other thing with the Cowboys, Sean Lee, great linebacker, but he's another injury that he's got there. I don't know if his body's just really made for playing football, which is the other part of being a great player. But, hey, sometimes the body just doesn't hold up. But I think there are problems there in Dallas, and it's going to be exposed again this week. I'm taking Detroit.
I'm going to agree with you. Matthew Stafford going back to his hometown of Detroit, combined with the fact, I'm glad you brought up Sean Lee. The Cowboys, I don't recall the exact number, have an atrocious record when Lee doesn't play. And then you look at what the Lions did. I guess there's really no mutiny against Matt Patricia there. The defense played well. They actually had a running back go for over 100 yards for the first time in eons. I believe Reggie Bush was the last one. So looks like they're not as much of a one-dimensional offense as we thought. So Lions is my pick as well.
There we go. We agree on that one. Let's get to the next game. And, hey, the 1-1-1 Cleveland Browns are in Oakland to play the 0-3 Raiders. It's Baker Mayfield time for the Browns. He came in last week and came in with a surprise win against the Jets. Granted, the Jets are not exactly a juggernaut or anything, but, hey, with a little luck, this Cleveland Browns team is 3-0. They are. That's just how it is. So, Cleveland going into Oakland, I'm going to say Oakland goes to 0-4. I like the Cleveland Browns. Wait, I like the Cleveland Browns. I don't know when the last time was I said that. Maybe it was in the days of Bernie Kosar or something. But I like the Cleveland Browns in this game. And, in fact, I have very little doubt that Cleveland's going to win this game, even though they are a 3-point underdog. What do you think?
I'm going to agree with you. We hit on this last week. I really like the way the Browns defense is playing. Kept them in that game last week against the Jets. I think Mayfield gives them an added dimension on offense that they didn't have before, as you saw a completely different second half for that team. And not only is Oakland a team in disarray, I'm not quite sure their defense can stop anyone right now. So words I'm going to say that I've never thought I'd say in decades, the Cleveland Browns could be on a 2-game winning streak. Is that right?
They very well could. So, hey, Cleveland Browns, we're both going for them over the Oakland Raiders. Last game we're going to pick, the Baltimore Ravens. This is one of those, hey, you know what? There's 3 yards in a cloud of dust, blood and guts game. The Baltimore Ravens in Pittsburgh to play their division rival Pittsburgh Steelers. Ravens at 2-1. The Steelers at 1-1. The Steelers with the big win last week over Tampa, and Baltimore with a big win over Denver last week in Denver. So what do you think of how do you see this one?
I think it's going to be a tough one whenever these two teams meet. Classic backyard battle, a lot of defensive football, or late heroics. And I remember on Christmas a couple of years ago, the Steelers scoring a late touchdown. Joe Flacco versus Ben Roethlisberger. I think it was interesting the Steelers got back on track, especially offensively. I don't tend to like the Ravens on the road. I think they really threw a dud earlier this year in Cincinnati on Thursday Night Football. I'm going to go with the Steelers. I think everything's good for one more week, sans Le'Veon Bell. But I just think that offense, kind of speculating at this point, but I do think that win over Tampa will help give them some momentum.
Yeah, I think so. And also the Steelers, from what I understand, they're finally listening to trade offers for Le'Veon Bell. So maybe that will mentally help the team get to the point and accept that they can't just be waiting for Superman. This is the team they're going to have to go forward with. whether they make the playoffs, don't make the playoffs, go to the Super Bowl, or don't, it's going to have to be this unit here. And playing at home, I think that kind of a load lifted here when they can actually accept that Le'Veon Bell might not be coming back. I like the Steelers at home also.
Yeah, I think if anything, it'd be addition by subtraction. I don't blame the Steelers for entertaining a trade.
Yeah, there we go. Okay, so that's the picks of the week. Now let's go ahead and get down to one of our favorite segments here, and that is our Gambler's Delight special. And what we do here is, hey, we don't advocate that you gamble away your house payment or your kid's college fund or anything, but if you happen to be at a sports book, you got $20 burning a hole in your pocket, you got to have some juice on the game. Here's some good advice for you. Now, we both won our picks last week. Chris is the master of picking the underdog. I go with the over-unders. I went with the over on the Steelers in Tampa on Monday night, whereas Chris went with the New Orleans Saints game. Is that correct?
Correct.
That right? Yes.
They went outright. They were getting 3.
Yeah, there we go. Okay, Chris, you first. What have you got for us?
Everyone knows I love underdogs, and there's nothing better than a home underdog. And I found myself one this week after kind of an abyss of opportunities last week. Thank you to the Saints, by the way. Going with the Denver Broncos at home on Monday night, big AFC West showdown against the team with the greatest quarterback and the greatest offense in the history of football, if you listen to the so-called experts, Kansas City Chiefs. The Broncos are getting 5 points at home. If you can find 5.5, more power to you. While not necessarily sure whether they win this game. That's a lot of points for a team that's got a stout defense and really plays well at home. I do think the Chiefs have not faced a defense the likes of this one with Von Miller, Bradley Chubb, etc. I do think they'll get some stops on young Patrick Mahomes. They'll stay in this game. At the very least, they lose by 4 points or less. And ESPN will be happy to have another great Monday night thriller for their TV ratings. But taking the Broncos +5. That's my pick of the week.
Okay, there we go. Thank you, Mr. Lardieri. And for yours truly, it's going to involve the same team that I picked last week, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, the Baltimore and Pittsburgh game, the over-under is at 50.5. And those of you who know the history of that, normally it's around 39, maybe 43.5 or something. But really, the Rams-Vikings game, their over-under is 49.5. New Orleans at the Giants, it's 50 points. The only one that's higher than that is the Kansas City at Denver game, and that's 55. So thinking that the Ravens and Steelers are going to go for a shootout, 50.5 points. And we look at the last game the Steelers played, they put up 30 on the Buccaneers, but a lot of that was, there was a pick six in there. There was Fitzpatrick throwing a few interceptions and putting them on a short field a few times. So I don't see the Steelers or the Ravens really running up and down the field. This is a game they really need. It's a division matchup. I think it's going to be played conservatively. So Steelers and Baltimore Ravens play the under. I'm saying under 50.5. And, hey, you can hopefully thank both of us next week.
I like it. These games are usually hard-fought, close, and low-scoring, so I can't fault your logic at all.
There we go. Okay, everybody, so there's our Gambler's Delight picks, and one final thing to go here, and that is for all of you who like that, draft. Wait, I can't say that because they're not paying me to say that on the air. Fantasy football advice from Mr. Lardieri, who has been playing this for many, many years. Chris, you have the stage.
Thank you. An odd year in fantasy football, to say the least. You look now with Jimmy Garoppolo out. You're in need of a quarterback. I know in my league, team I'm actually playing this week had him and had his choice of the likes of Eli Manning out there on waivers. Look, I've advocated for Andy Dalton. He's got his faults, but at least in fantasy football, he can score you some points. Unfortunately, he's probably gone in your league. So dare I say, go out there in free agency. Look for a guy like Baker Mayfield. You need someone who's on a sub for a bye week, or you're stuck with Garoppolo, unfortunately, who's done for the year. You could do a heck of a lot worse than getting him. I'd actually like him over Ryan Tannehill because I think the Browns, while they've won a game, I don't think they're going to be a great team, and he may be slinging the ball a lot this season. I think, too, there are two matchups this week that if you've got offensive players on either of these teams, I think you've got to be happy, and that's the Saints versus the Giants. Not known for their defenses, either of these teams this year. And then also Cincinnati and Atlanta, two teams where they've been putting up a lot of points this year. They've been throwing the ball. If you got any offensive players, I know Calvin Ridley really and Tyler Boyd emerge last week as receivers for those respective teams. So got to be pretty happy if you have them. Another thing to keep an eye on, the bye weeks have started, in case you didn't notice. This week, the Panthers and the Redskins are on bye. A little trick I like to do, being a old fantasy football player, relatively speaking, is if you see someone from either of those teams that someone's released or snuck out on waivers, this is the week you want to go grab one of those guys. Maybe it might be a Redskins running back or the Panthers defense. Go pick them up on waivers, stash them for the rest of the season. And that's the key to fantasy football. There's not a lot of depth in these big 12 to 14 team leagues. Take a chance on a guy, stash him away. Hopefully he'll pay dividends later in the year. And then finally, you're in need of a defense this week. Two favorable matchups I like. The LA Chargers, who lost the so-called Battle of LA last week. They got lit up by Jared Goff. Really didn't look good. The good news for them this week is they have the potential 2-14 team from the Bay Area, the 49ers, coming to the soccer stadium in Carson. I don't trust CJ Beathard. I don't know about you, but that could bode well for the Chargers D. And then, too, you've got the Green Bay Packers. I like them. I know the Bills shocked the world by beating the Vikings in Minnesota last week, but I think they'll clearly have some mean reversion this week. Rookie quarterback Josh Allen's good for a few turnovers. So those are two potential defenses for you there. And just kind of on a side note, living here in LA, Jared Goff got lit up and the Rams got lit up. They traded up a ransom of picks to get him. And honestly, the guy's developed into not only a nice NFL quarterback, but really a solid fantasy football quarterback as well. If you play in a league where he's out there or you can get him, more power to you, because I think this Rams team with little competition in the NFC West are going to roll up some nice points this year. So props to you, Jared Goff.
All right. There we go, Mr. Lardieri. And as usual, thank you for that advice. And by the way, the Minnesota Vikings, if they get rolled up and smoked like a blunt here on Thursday in Los Angeles, they're definitely going to be taking center stage on next week's show, because that'll put them down at 1-3, I believe. So
the 1-2-1. Don't forget that great
1-2-1. That's right, the tie. Yes,
getting like soccer around here, or hockey.
All right, everybody. So that's the show for you. Remember, the show is NFL Football Talk every single week. You can find us on iTunes, or if you get the Podbean app on your smartphone, you can take us with you wherever you go. You can listen in the office, in the break room, or in your car on the way home. And remember, you can follow me on Twitter at @TheInsideSports. Follow Mr. Lardieri on Twitter at ChrisLSports. And for Chris Lardieri, I'm Charles E. Smith Jr. Thank you for listening, and we'll see everybody next week.